Good afternoon and welcome again to the Friday Review of Apps. My name is Reto Mai and joining me in the studio I have Trevor Johns.
Hi there everyone.
And via the miracle of modern technology joining us from his new abode in New York City, we have Roman Urich.
Hello everyone.
Hey Roman, thank you for joining us in your flickery self. So we're going to take a look at a few apps today, and while Ian tries to figure out what the flickering is about, we may start off by having a look at Samo Color. So we're also going to look at GPS tests, a couple of notes apps, and some exercise apps as well, Run Double. So we've got quite an interesting and eclectic collection for you today. So shall we get started?
Sure, let's go ahead.
Let's have a look at Samo Color. So we're going to fire this up on the phone over here. So I'll wait until Ian gets a chance. Excellent. Somehow that's moved. All right, perfect. So here we go. So Samo Color by Code Carpet. Tap 3 times to buy. Interesting. I wonder what my alternatives are. So I can see an arrow here, so I'm going to swipe across. And I can see a number of different options here. Not entirely sure what they are. Oh, okay, so they're locked. All right, so we'll go here and we click. Oh, okay, interesting. So this is, so in case it wasn't obvious, this is an app which is targeted towards children.
Right, hence the tap 3 times to buy.
Indeed, tap 3 times to buy. Hopefully children
actually, it's not a bad idea, because a lot of times the complaints we hear from people who write apps, or directed towards apps who are targeted towards children, is that there's these buy buttons and then children just go and hit on them accidentally. So I like the idea of kids are just going to go and mash on the screen. So anything to go and prevent them from accidentally buying is probably a good thing.
Probably a good thing, absolutely. Although I wonder if you want to go a step further and actually hide that behind a menu option or something like that.
Yeah, still probably a good idea to actually go all the way and actually turn on the pin lock and mark it. But
yes, that's a very good point. But still, it's a good point you make. All right, so the idea here is that we can color in the little guy on screen using the colors at our disposal. Let's see, I'll give him green ears, blue.
There actually are more colors.
There are more colors? Oh, look at that. I can swipe to get more colors.
It took me a moment to figure that out. I mean, they did have a little widget down there to go and show you that there's more pages, but
that's true.
Amongst all the noise of all the colors, it's actually really easy to miss.
It didn't occur to me that the pager was talking about the colors themselves. That's interesting. So, okay, so what I would say is, particularly for something which
there's
is
also a menu too, by the way.
I saw it does have the menu.
No, not that menu.
Ah.
See the black thing with the eyes.
Oh, it's a menu. That's interesting. So 2 points here. First is, let me just scroll up slightly. Menu button of shame, because it's there but doesn't do anything.
Yeah, especially because it doesn't do anything. There's really no reason to have that.
Exactly. So that's the big hate we have for the menu button being there, is if it doesn't actually do anything.
Well, even if it still does something, you shouldn't have it anymore.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
There is no excuse for having a menu button at this point.
Yeah, I think we've moved on far enough now.
Well,
Jelly
we're
Bean
Jelly
coming
Bean
out.
now. It's now our second release where the menu button. Well, if you count Honeycomb, third release where menu button is just deprecated. So, yeah, at this point we really shouldn't be seeing that anymore.
Exactly. So yeah, that would be step 1: is remove that menu button. Now, having the little eyes, this is interesting. Now and then, so you actually drag it. You can click as well. Click target doesn't seem to be working 100% of the time, so that's a bit of feedback, but
yes,
it also works. The dragging is quite nice.
Now the other thing that confused me too, now that back button, would you think that's back?
Oh, that's a good question. It's just above the other back button. I would probably think undo.
It is undo, but
Yeah.
it took me a moment. It's like, what's going to happen when I push this button?
Yeah, definitely. Anything which looks like a back button, I think you're kind of taking your usability into your own hands here, because you suddenly go, oh, is this going to exit? Now, clearly kids aren't going to think that, but they're probably not going to think undo.
They might hit the regular back button thinking it's undo.
That's a good point. Particularly once you've made it ambiguous here that maybe back means undo. You probably want to simplify that. So I don't think this is discoverable at all. It would never have occurred to me to press the googly eyes. Now, in fairness, a 6-year-old probably would think to hit pretty much everything on screen, so that would help. But yeah, this doesn't quite feel right.
There's multi-level undo, but this is a children's app, so I'll give them a pass on that.
Yeah, exactly. But that would be nice, and particularly so once you hit undo, having that stay on screen so that you can do multi-level undo would be nice. But I mean, maybe have these as an action bar along the top might be interesting. I guess you want to keep the screen cluttered down. You don't want to have people accidentally pressing buttons. So having it hidden in a way is useful. But
Yeah, again, I mean, there is that argument that kids are going to imagine everything on the screen, so I can sort of see the argument for hiding it, but I think the discoverability could really be improved.
Yeah. What do you think, Roman? Do you have, from a usability perspective, an idea here of how you can maybe make these more or less obvious?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first thing is that asking kids to discover slidey things like sliding drawers, I think it's asking a little too much. And in general, we recommend using gestures to uncover things. Sliding drawers, I personally am kind of against, but using gestures is normally okay, like paging between screens and things like that. But for kids, kids kind of they understand simple gestures like sliding, but it has to be really, really, really obvious. And I think it is obvious in this case. What I would probably do instead is really just put it on screen. And for things like for things like navigating to other pieces of art, it's actually like right now, once you're in a drawing, there's no real way to get to other drawings. So for that, you may want to use gestures, like maybe slide left to kind of go back to the top level screen. But sliding up a thing to reveal actions, or even at the very bottom, something as simple as using a view pager to slide between different colors, even that may be a little too unobvious. So in that case, maybe you just have left and right buttons.
Yeah, well, there's already two people who didn't notice that you could slide for colors. So,
yeah, because that's actually that gesture that you described is what I assumed that the pager was for. Was that if I started swiping left or right, it would take me to a different picture. So that's why the visual cue wasn't obvious to me that it was.
I think just like in general, when dealing with kids apps, you want to put more stuff in a fun, like friendly, like picture form on screen, rather than rely on gestures too much. So I think in this case, kids may get confused, like, oh, how do I get back to whatever? And obviously, grown-ups will know that, oh, you press the back button, it's the Android back button, but kids aren't as, they're not as used to using smartphones. So don't assume that standard kind of Android patterns apply for kids.
Yeah, I think that's particularly true because while it's good that they've got this consistent approach to using the pager and having, I'm quite a fan of having this indicator to show you what page you're on. They use it sort of to mean different things on different pages. Oops, managed to exit. That would be, so that's another tip. If I exit from a particular drawing, so if I exit from here by hitting back, when I reload the app, I should go back to the same place I was, because the chances of someone, particularly a kid, accidentally hitting back and being like, oh, I've lost everything, is high. But yeah, so they've used it up here to page between pictures, and once you go in, they use it to page between colors, which I think is somewhat confusing, particularly because this isn't. Is it a proper pager? I guess it is. It's showing a set of different colors each time. But yeah, having the same visual metaphor meaning two different things can be a little bit confusing.
Right. Yeah, what you may want to do is, when having lots of colors, I mean, in this case, there's lots and lots of colors. There's a lot to choose from. You may want to just have, like, when you touch the color, it expands up this larger palette to choose from. And or something even like, have them smaller so that the kid can just drag their finger around like this massive color palette at the bottom, and it shows them a preview of what color their finger is on, almost like a magnifying glass. That may make a little more sense than kind of swiping left and right.
Yeah, I think so too. Otherwise, it's I really like the simplicity of the app. So it's there's no ambiguity as to what you need to do, how it's going to work. You get the immediate benefit. You hit the screen and things start to happen, which is really nice. Pictures are nice, cutesy. Otherwise, yeah, I think it's quite a nice app. Otherwise,
there's one more thing I wanted to add
please.
Around. There's one part of the app. I think it might be the page where the teacher is standing and looking at a chalkboard, and there's a bunch of different shapes there.
Yes.
So it's basically free form. You just draw free form.
Oh, really?
In that case, what I would...
Nice.
So you should probably support multi-touch there. Kids love placing all their fingers all at once on the screen. And
actually, I'd take that a step further even, and try and detect pressure.
Yes. So there's actually an open source app called Markers that was recently released by Daniel Sandler, who's on the Android team, and that shows how to do all sorts of crazy pressure sensitivity, and as well as multi-touch. So you may want to look
this is on normal screens, just a normal capacitive screen. You can actually still get some pressure data. So
Yeah.
it's not the same as like your Wacom tablet where you have 500 levels of pressure sensitivity, but it's good enough to get you a nice UI.
Yeah, that's
Also,
nice.
you may want to consider having a single, just like massive, like take over the entire screen and just give like kids a playground to just draw in, right? Like just free-form drawing, like
Yeah.
completely not like bound by a rectangle or circles or shapes or anything. Just give them a giant canvas to draw on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big
I'd make
board.
it more obvious too, because it would never have occurred to me that if I hit one of the three objects on the right here, that would mean that I get free-form drawing, whereas that would seem like one of the something which you would in particular want to be able to do.
It's locked.
Oh, it's locked. Yeah, of course. Why isn't it working? Which is another tip as well. So obviously you've got the icon on the bottom which says locked, which to most adults should be pretty obvious, but I missed it, which is probably more of a reflection on me than on your app. But that
It should
being
probably
said,
be really, you should just cover the entire screen because you can't do anything there.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you've already got sort of the partial opacity. You could make that so you can see through it a little bit more, but cover the entire screen. Or when I press it, display a toast or something saying this is locked. Purchase it from the home screen, something like that. Because again, it's not obvious. I know that when you first start up the app, you see the instructions for how to purchase.
Yeah,
but
I like that idea. Like if you tap the lock thing, it should fade out and like say purchase from home screen and the lock should come back or add
Yeah.
some animation.
Some,
there,
some,
make it
some way
feel
to
alive.
know. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Which is, and you'll notice that I find the navigation slightly tricky. But otherwise it's definitely a good idea and it's nicely implemented. Just to go along further from what Trevor was saying, it might be nice to have a little bit more animation, a bit more dynamicism within the app.
Yeah, like maybe like some subtle things. Like this guy there could be like maybe tapping his foot or so something again make it feel like you're just not staring at a static image.
Absolutely, yeah. I think some really subtle animations could make a really big difference because it just it will attract your attention. It'll make your eye focus on different parts of it. So I think that would be quite interesting.
Yeah, or since it's an app designed for kids, you could even have like little Easter eggs. Like if you, like I think going over here, right there's the background. Maybe if this wasn't locked, if I tapped on this guy, maybe he should start moving or a sound should play. Right, something to make people or make kids want to go and explore a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's kind of nice that all of the discovery things like the freeform drawing is all totally you play with the app and you discover these things, which is kind of nice. But it would also be perhaps useful in terms of getting people to use the app in the first place to give some more indication of what some of those Easter eggs are, or some of the things that you can do, like maybe a tutorial or something at the beginning, which just has forces you through basically the three different modes. Here you press the colors to draw it. Here you get free form, and now we give you these sort of worksheets where you can do what you want to do. Nice. All right. Any other comments, Trevor, Roman?
I think they pretty much nailed it.
I just wanted to say two quick things. I know we're running high on time on this, but two quick things about the Google Play listing.
All right. Should we pull it up here?
Let's see what we can do.
It's very quick feedback, but
I'm gonna search for it first.
You could almost scan the barcode on our screen in here.
I probably could. But my app's probably faster. Where are you? Here we go. Okay.
we all good?
Yep.
So two very quick things. In the feature graphic, you have the name of the app, Samo Colors. The font size is really, really small at the top. And so one thing to note is that in the Play Store on devices, actually on phones, you're going to see the feature graphic compressed to a really small size, so you're not going to be able to read that text. So if you can find some way to bump up the font size so that it's a little more obvious, what the name of the app is, that'll be much better, because there are cases where the feature graphic is used not adjacent to the name of the app. The second thing was around screenshots. Your screenshots are actually using the device frame generator. I would probably avoid using device frames in your screenshots themselves.
Yeah, it makes it look too small.
Yeah, because when you open it up on a phone, you've got a frame within your phone.
Yeah, which might not be the same frame as the phone you're using.
We must go deeper. Yeah, it's a good point, because it looks great when I bring them up full screen. Like, this actually looks pretty cool, although it is kind of Inception-y. But when you're just looking at them in the carousel, it looks kind of weird. because you've just got like a bunch of phones side by side. Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
agree
'cause,
with
yeah,
that.
those frames are, I think, more for use on web pages, things like that,
Yes.
marketing material. Not so, and yeah, I mean, your playlisting is marketing material in a sense, but
Absolutely.
not good to use them there.
No. It's good to see as well it's been translated into German, Japanese, Korean, and Spanish. And given that there's not actually a lot of text, that seems like a really good way of being able to create a better experience for your users, make it more discoverable in Google Play at a relatively small cost. And it's very well received, looking at its average reviews in market. So well done. Hopefully a few of those tips which we've given you will help to make your app even better. Okay. Oh,
That
things
was
just
not
Nah,
got
it didn't
bad.
sound good at all, did it?
Are we still live?
Hard to say. Hard to say.
Everything's alive.
All right.
We're going to assume we're alive. Our confidence monitors have disappeared, and
And so
Roman's
has Roman, I think.
dropped off the Hangout because that computer
Yes.
has taken a tumble. But are we otherwise online, Ian? From what you can see?
Should be. Should
Excellent.
be.
All right, we will
Flip the
continue.
switch on the HDMI box down there. I think we lost that signal above the
Okay.
Mac.
Yes.
All
Okay.
right, we'll let Ian
All right.
sort all that out.
We will continue.
What do you guys want to do next?
We're going to have a look at GPS Test Plus, I think. Okay, so this is a GPS testing app. So this is interesting. I'm going to presume that it's using some of the more advanced GPS functions or location-based services functions, which can actually get you a lot of information about the way in which the location-based services are using satellite information to be able to figure out where your location is.
Sadly, we're probably not going to be able to see it in here with the ceiling above our heads.
Well, that's true, but still, I mean, there's a window.
It's asking a lot.
Well, that's true. Okay, so we've got 0 in view, 0 in use right now, so the accuracy is
That's okay. You can still see
Not
most
useful.
of the app without it.
exactly. But the app itself we can look at. So it's kind of an interesting display here. It kind of reminds me of sort of an old school sort of 8-bit game type look and feel.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not a big fan of it though.
Yeah?
Mostly, like it feels out of place on Android. You know, it's not hollow. I mean, if you flip through here to you have this sort of fake LCD display, but it doesn't really look like an LCD. It looks like a computer generated. I'd expect to see, if you're going to go for something that's mimicking a real display, add some gloss onto it, make it actually look real. Go for the.
If you're going to go
if
all
you're-
the
yeah,
way,
go with
right?
the digital look, go for the real look, but in between it just looks sort of MS Paintish, to be honest.
No, that's absolutely true. In fact, one of the first jobs I ever had out of college, I was building software for an industrial inspection company. And because all of the equipment that they usually use is all sort of old school with the LCD displays and everything, and so I made the software to try and look as much like that as possible. And you'd find yourself getting into this arms race where you want it to look just like the real equipment. Then you do it first and you do it like this and everything's flat. And you're like, well, that's not quite right because their stuff glows, so how do I make this glow? And then you start adding gradients to your images and it goes to a very bad place. You end up spending a lot of time trying to, do these little things with canvases and everything else to try and mimic something which is done that way because it's cheaper to do in hardware, not
Right.
because it looks better.
And honestly, I mean, the Android way of doing things, we tend to not really try and mimic real displays very often, real objects, and that's just sort of the style we've chosen. So an app like this just feels out of place on the system. I mean, ignoring the fact that we have no action bar, I don't know why there's no action bar. We also have the menu button of shame. But at least it has a menu.
It's not as shameful, but
I mean, there's no reason that can be converted into an action bar.
That's interesting.
But I mean, I think the app would just look a lot nicer with the splash of hollow on there.
yeah, I tend
now
to agree.
I think what the app developer is trying to do, if you go into settings, you can actually change the theme. So I think they were trying to make it themable. You can choose like a nighttime view, or an amber view, or a red view.
I gotcha. It's not
But
hard as
maybe it's not so bad actually. If you're outdoors, stargazing, you want a GPS because you're going hiking. Being able to set. Being able to set a. There you go, like a night view
Nice.
like that is actually a pretty good idea. But you could do something like that and still try and stay true to hollow, I think.
I think so. I mean, this is I spent a lot of time in a previous life working on boats, where you have a lot of this equipment set up. And you have nighttime views. As soon as the sun goes down, you have this much more muted theme so people don't destroy their night vision while looking at the controls. And I kind of like the idea of mimicking that sort of thing on something like that. But part of me would say, well, what is the purpose of your app? And so if it is to sort of work as a backup or as an alternative to some of these GPS systems while you're navigating, then first I would say it's probably of questionable utility, because unless you're sitting on the roof of your boat, then you're going to have this problem where you don't have any satellites in view. If it's just an aesthetic thing, you're just really trying to mimic that style because that's what you're used to and you think that your users will sort of appreciate that, that's definitely a choice. But I kind of agree with Trevor here. I think you can do that without making it look like an old Atari game. So you've got the same sort of layout, the same sort of graphics, because the big graphics and these sorts of features are definitely the right approach. But you just want to spend a little bit more time to think about how you can use that same layouts, but on something which is much more modern. So mimicking a modern GPS rather than a GPS which you would have seen in a computer game in the 80s.
Yeah, that actually brings up another point too, just as far as like the number of options in here. I mean, there's a lot of color schemes, which not necessarily a bad thing, but just looking around the entire app, you have a ton of settings, some of which are sort of redundant. You have an option to use imperial metric units for your speedometer, imperial metric units for altitude. It's like you could condense all of those into just one setting. Do I want imperial or metric units? I can't think of very many cases where I'd want my speed in one system and my altitude in another. There's some other things there too. You can choose between. I think if you go to this menu here, you can actually change all these to gauges, which again has the same problem where it looks sort of like an Atari game. But there's just like so many options on here. And here it is. And honestly, as a user, it's too much because I'd never find them all.
Yeah, it makes it non-discoverable, right? It's like you almost, if you want to be able to choose between different gauges, you may want to do that.
Yep. And then even going to the options on the bottom, there's this mode and this mode, and then when you're in, see here, there's another mode here. If you go to navigation, and then you have this mode, and then you have a hidden menu there. It's just the navigation hierarchy is very. It's a bit difficult to find, especially without textual labels on those buttons.
Yes, so this is really interesting. So I mean, it looks like this app does a lot of stuff. Like it's basically every gauge or dial you would want, which has anything to do with location.
It's a very useful app.
Which I like, and I really want to make a big point of this is that when we're sort of discussing, changing the UI to make it look less old school, I really want to emphasize that I don't think that you should change the overall layout. Like I love that it's big buttons, it's very graphical. Everything is based around sort of being able to see it from a distance. Right. And I think that's a really good approach. Like I say, when it comes to mimicking the LCD stuff, like having been there, I can tell you that it's really not worthwhile. And the feedback that you get from most actual users is, that's really hard to read. So it's a lot of effort, which may not entirely be worth it. So it's something to keep in mind.
Quick question: do you guys hear me right now?
We do.
Yes.
You are back.
Roman.
Okay. All right.
I don't think you can see us because our camera isn't glowing, but we can't see you either. But we can hear you.
I have a few thoughts on this.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So one thing that immediately confused me, and I agree with that, like the big dials, the big I guess panels are awesome. One thing that confused me a little bit was about the interactions. Basically, you have these 4 panels at the bottom. This is on the home screen. You have these 4 panels at the bottom, and touching them basically switches out those, the main display at the very top. But it wasn't clear that those panels were kind of like the top level hierarchy, and then above those 4 panels, those 4 buttons, was kind of the thing you're currently viewing. So I would try to use some sort of better visual indication that at the bottom is kind of like your primary control set, and then at the very top is something that is a member of that control set. It's not currently visible because touching it, they're kind of like tabs, but the current tab is not visible.
Yeah.
But somehow indicate that what you're viewing at the top is one of the things that is in this other set of controls at the bottom. And then when you touch on, I guess the numbers, the one that has heading, speed, and altitude, you bring up another set of controls where basically speed, altitude, and heading are kind of a secondary set of quote-unquote tabs, and you could apply the same visual. Maybe some sort of like arrow indicating that the top screen is a child of the lower buttons, something like that. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but I think it's just the hierarchy isn't clear immediately from the current presentation.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's sort of the idea of this being a toggle, but it's not really a toggle. It's just swapping out whatever the currently selected option is was not obvious to me either. And similarly, as Trevor pointed out, there are basically two modes. You've got navigation mode, which allows you to. It works a lot like MyTracks in a way. It'll let you keep track of waypoints and where those locations are, which is really really cool. But then there's GPS test, which is another version, and it's basically two apps within one app. And it's not obvious, like when I'm sitting here, I think, okay, well I want to go back to the other mode, and so I hit back, and that just exited the app. Because the right way to do it is to go back into GPS test from here. So
I almost feel like GPS test might not be the right name for this app.
I think
mean,
it's so much more than that, right?
They're just trying to build, honestly, a GPS.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. I can almost imagine where this has come from. Like, you fired up the Android SDK, you see all this cool stuff you can do with GPS, and so you're going to test all the GPS APIs, and then you create this app from it. But I almost feel like it's time to move beyond that in terms of the app name and try and be a bit more descriptive as to what it does. And even in terms of your navigation here, GPS test and navigation seem like two very different functions. They both use the GPS, certainly. But in terms of why you're going to use them, they're very different. Yeah. And I'd be tempted to have two activities.
I can see the reason why. I mean, having owned one of the really old Garmin GPS units, this is basically the way the UI worked. You turned it on, it gave you the GPS status screen, which showed you all the satellites, and then after a while you get a lock, and you switch over to your waypoint navigation. So, like I said, it really does feel like they're building, a proper GPS unit. Not one of the new fancy ones with mapping and everything, just like an old basic
Garmin for your phone.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
And I mean, I think that's a valid use. But on the other hand, I'm not sure if you're using it like that. Actually, seeing that screen is too useful. I wasn't sure it was too useful on the old GPS units either. Really, what you want to know is, you have an LED that says, "Is my GPS locked, good or bad?" And then you could click on that and have that pull up your whole GPS view. Yeah. So I mean, it really does boil down to, what do you want this app to do? Do you want it to be a GPS test app, or do you want to take it to the next level? Because I think you could. I think you could actually just say, "This is my GPS utility app."
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as that goes, that may then control how you decide to structure your navigation. Because I think fundamentally, even more important than the graphics element, which I think I'm quite sure a lot of people are going to disagree with us and be like, "No, I love the old school stuff."
It's always subjective. But
Exactly, but I think much more important than that is sorting out the navigation. Make it much clearer where you are in the app, how to move to different parts of it, and make everything work together. And I think figuring out what is the key purpose, and I talked a little bit about this during my I/O session this year, but what is the focus? What is the thing that you want people to associate your app with? Is it, oh yeah, I want to check to see what the GPS quality is, so I'm going to use GPS test and fire it up and see exactly how many satellites are in view and what the accuracy is? Or do you want it to be like, okay, I'm going for a hike, or I'm going fishing and I want to be able to mark down the best fishing spots or the best hiking trails, and so I'm going to use GPS test navigation to do that. Chances are it's going to be one or the other is what your users are using, or what your direction for the app is. And so I would try and find a way to focus more on that and make everything else sort of more supportive of that, and try and really get that focus as tight as you can.
Yeah, one minor add-on to that, just aid in navigation and strategic.
Oh, I think we lost Roman.
We may have lost you there.
Remember, guys, when I was crawling around on the floor,
we do remember
unplugging stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, that's because somebody unplugged the Chromebook and then used its original plug to do something else.
Handy.
So, we have no Hangout.
Okay.
That's just the way it is.
Sorry, Roman, if you can still hear us somewhere, anywhere.
You can't.
You can't, no.
we could have him dial in by phone.
Speak louder. Phone, nice. Yeah, no.
Actually, we could have him join us on G-Talk on that phone there. We can switch back and forth with the app and Roman. No, it might not work too well.
I think we're going to stick with the app for now.
Yeah.
We'll have Roman joining us again, hopefully next week. We're going to try and continue to keep him involved in our Friday reviews, even though he is all the way in New York City.
Also, gentlemen, just remember you have about 5 minutes left.
5 minutes, excellent. All right, let's have a look. So we wanted to do a quick community service announcement type talk on one of the apps, or a kind of app which we get a lot of nominations for, and that is virus checkers.
Oh yes.
So I can't see, but I'm going to assume that you've put something on screen. But so we get a lot of nominations for virus checking apps. And one of the struggles we have is that if we decide we want to put it up and talk about it, is that it's then already been removed from market or from Google Play before we actually get a chance to look at it. So there is kind of a clue as to where I'm going with this based on that. And the struggle here is that a lot of the times these apps are they're basically trying to spread FUD. So it's a case of, oh, it's a computer type thing and I don't want to get a virus, I don't want to get malware, so I better download a virus checker to make sure that that doesn't happen to me. Now, the problem is, well, I'm going to turn that around slightly. The good news is that really isn't something that you need. So you don't need virus checkers for your Android phones. In most of the cases, what these apps claim to do isn't quite legit. And so that's why a lot of these will disappear from Google Play, is because they're basically claiming to be able to do something which they can't. And a lot of that's because apps are already sandboxed. And that's really part of that security model, is that apps can't mess with other apps, which has the very positive side effect of meaning that viruses are very, very difficult to create. So, we certainly have had some small issues with malware, and there's processes in place to remove those. But in terms of apps infecting other apps, interfering with the way they work, isn't really an issue. The side effect of that is, of course, by the same token, having an app which is supposed to go through and scan other apps and modify the way they behave in the way that a virus checker works doesn't work either.
Right. Yeah, so there's really, you can't write a virus checker. So if we see one, that sort of immediately raises a red flag for everyone on the team, and we ask, what the heck is this app doing? And most of the time the answer is it's lying to the user.
Exactly. And so even if it's not doing anything malicious in and of itself, which often they aren't, it's claiming to do something which it can't do, and that definitely raises flags. And to be honest, a lot of the time we've seen situations where apps like this are just trying to prey on people's sort of preconceived notions of what they need, and they also tend to have a pretty high correlation of spam within the app description and so on itself. So it's basically, for whatever reason, people trying to get people to download this app and do advertising things around that. Now, that's not always the case, but that's certainly something which we've found a lot of. So we won't be reviewing any virus checker apps, because as far as we're concerned, the answer is it does nothing. So in case you're wondering why we skip past them in the future, now you know.
Yeah, and I think there was a second part of that app too, which is, I think it was like notification spam checking.
Oh, okay.
Which I think technically you could do. You could run through the whole package list and search for package name, and you can't look inside of it, but you could match against known packages. But honestly, that's not even really needed on Jelly Bean anymore, because you can just go and click on a notification and find out which app it came from. So
exactly. So it's something which we're definitely very keen to try and make sure that the platform is free of anything which is going to be annoying, frustrating, or malicious against users. And we will try and find ways to do that within the platform itself, because quite simply, it's not something that which can be done effectively or even at all in most cases by a third-party app. All right, so let's have a look at what else have we got. So we've got a bunch of Notes apps. I don't think we really have enough time to look at them. So let's have a look at Rundouble instead. We'll do a Notes app review next week.
Yeah.
There's always a lot of Notes apps which we get up for review. So I think that's what we'll do next week, is just get like a whole collection of them. We'll go through the moderator queue. So if you have a Notes app that you'd like us to look at, it's probably a good opportunity to put it into the moderator queue, and we'll run through like a bunch of them and pick out the best and worst of each. All right, so this is, let's see, what is the name of this app? This is Rundouble.
yeah, first comment, the UI sort of hurts my eyes.
Yeah, it's a little bright. Yeah, it is extreme. And so the other question I had about this, and I'm gonna go ahead and check in.
Also, menu buttons of shame.
Menu buttons of shame, that's true. Yeah. The ad as well, so no problem with having ad-supported apps by any means, but the concern here is more that it kind of looks out of place, kind of like Ian, the way he's hovering in front of us. It really sort of doesn't quite work with the rest of the UI, and everything feels kind of a little off balance. Perfect. Thank you, Ian. We now can see ourselves again. All right, so I'm going to have a look in the Play Store, because I have a suspicion. I'm just going to slide this back while I bring up the right app. Okay, C25.
Yeah, also that icon.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate. But what I'm almost more concerned with, so what I'm not sure of here is whether or not this app is officially sponsored by Rundouble, or if this is an app which someone has built to help support something by a third party.
Yeah, so it also says by Rundouble C25K. So
Exactly, and so that it brings up a question mark for me, and so this is potentially, so again, I don't know in this particular case, and I will try and get in touch with the developer and find out exactly. But if it is a run double app, then that's great. It's certainly something we'd like to see. If it's not, so this is an app by someone who has built something to support a third party, you want to be really cautious about the way that you promote that, because there are rules in the Play Store about not creating apps and app descriptions which make it seem as though your app is officially affiliated with something that it isn't, or that it is an app that it isn't.
yeah, also, more broadly speaking, there's trademark laws as well, which
Absolutely.
We're not lawyers, we can't comment on, but it is something you need to be aware of.
Yeah, exactly. And so, even leaving the sort of the legal side aside, if the if our team looks at this and we find out, okay, no, it's not by the Run Double team, even if here it isn't clear to me whether or not that's the case. And so you want to make sure that you're really clear to your users as to, is this official, is this something that's in support of another app, and make sure, of course, that you have permission from them to use their APIs or their resources in that kind of a way. So we're really conscious about trying to not confuse users and make sure that they know exactly what's going on. And here, I'm a little confused. So yes, that's what I wanted to check. So let's go back into the app. Open it up. So yeah, the big thing here is that the UI it's too bright. The yellow is too much, and then you've got the small icons with the white text. Again, sort of old school looking icons, which they're reasonable resolution, but they also look very vectory. So yeah, I'd definitely work on that. Like right now, it's not particularly appealing. Like I'd make it want to go away because it's hurting too much. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this screen, there's something I should point out too.
Please do, yeah.
So I think actually it's one screen back. So first off, you have the change plan, which lets you. I think if you click something here, it lets you. Oh, it works now. It tried to make me buy it earlier.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Did you cave and buy it?
No, I didn't. So at least a few minutes ago, when I tried to do this, wow, I don't even know how to get back there. Upgrade maybe. Ah, there we go. So that's another thing that's confusing. Like, these menus are pretty much the same. Why is it... And there's 3 ways to get to this, there, or there. It really should just be one menu.
Yeah.
But also, when you buy these, you'll notice like the description says couch to 5K. And I click buy. And the description now does not say anything similar. Right, couch to 5K, weeks 3 to 9. I guess it's sort of similar, but it doesn't match exactly. And that confused me for a second.
Yeah, it's not clear exactly what you're getting. Unlocking remaining weeks 3 to 9, which I guess implies that this is weeks 1 to 3, and then this must be 9 through something
that's
else.
bundled in
That's
with
all
it.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, so basically my feedback there is make sure that your in-app descriptions, if you're doing in-app purchasing, or rather your descriptions in your UI match what you give to market to display in the purchase screens.
Yeah, absolutely. Make it clear. So I think what's going on here is that you can do the couch to 5K as a free trial for 2 weeks, but if you want to do the remaining 3 to 9 times a week, then you need to do the purchase. So that's, if you read through it in detail, you can get to where it's trying to get you to go. But you definitely want to try and make that as clear as possible. You never.
That is a lot of text on one screen too.
It is, yeah. You never want to be a case. Like the real big advantage of in-app billing is that it removes those barriers. It's fewer clicks between I want this and I have this. So you want to make sure that that's as smooth a path as possible.
Yeah, honestly, I almost, like I said, get rid of that upgrade menu and then the change plan button. Have your purchase button right there, and then you can go and grade these out if they're not available or if you're in trial mode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Make it clear what you're getting.
There's
and
so
why you
many ways you could go and improve the purchase flow there, and as an app developer, that's good for you.
Yeah. So I don't want to spend too much more time on this, mainly because we're pretty much out of time. But the big, the big suggestion I would have for you here is to basically take another look at your UI, create something which is less busy, less bright, and sort of less text, more pictures. Really try, again, it's all about focus. Try and figure out what is it that I would get this app to do? What are the actions that I want a user to do once they start this, and bring them to the forefront. Everything else, some of it you may want to move into menus or move further down the hierarchy or just remove completely. It's really just a case of figuring out, what is it that you want me to do once I install your app, and try and drive me down that path.
And blinding your users is usually not what you want to do.
No, not safe either.
Well, unless that's what your app is for. If your app is called Blind Me.
Yeah, well, indeed.
I'm being harsh, but it's just this yellow and black theme.
It's a little much.
A bit much. Again, like I was saying earlier, try and make it blend in with the rest of the system. Take a look at the Holo design guidelines. I suspect you're trying to do some branding here with the yellow and black thing, which is cool. And there are ways to go and keep that motif going while still staying true to how Holo is supposed to look and feel.
Absolutely. All right, so we're out of time. I want to give Ian and Dan from the Friday Games Review a chance to set up. So we're going to sign off. We will be back next week with, hopefully, Fred will be back again next week as well, and maybe Trevor will join us too. And we're going to take a look at some note-taking apps. So in the meantime, we will bid you adieu. Hopefully you'll stick around and watch the Friday Games Review with Ian and Dan, and the mystery hat. I'm not sure what the mystery hat is this week, but it's bound to be
And
an
there's a
exciting
mystery
hat.
beer as well.
There's always a mystery beer. That's very true.
But there's a special mystery beer.
Ooh,
Yes.
well, that's exciting.
That's right. This time the beer is a mystery to Dan, but I'll give you a preview because I doubt he's watching. It's going to be Mikkeller's 1000 IBU. We'll see how much of a hophead he truly is.
So now, how can you turn that down? So we expect that all of you guys will take a quick bathroom break, and we'll all be back in 10 minutes for the Friday Games Review. So
Right.
thank you for joining us.
See you, everyone.